Hi, my name is Jack Williams III. I was born April 10th, 1999, uh, technically in Livonia, Michigan, but I grew up in Detroit, Telegraph 8 Mile, kind of like border of Southfield, Redford, really weird areas, a lot of stuff over there. Um, but yeah, my family, uh, born and raised Detroiters. My dad's family has been here for a long time. My mom's family came from Memphis, Tennessee. Um, so yeah, my dad he grew up in the 40s and 50s. My mom like 50s, 60s. But yeah, something that I always like since I'm a musician, I'm a singer. My dad's mom, she went to Cass Tech for something in fashion. I don't quite remember, but she was a seamstress for Motown. And so my dad's about the same age as a lot of those guys, like Smokey Robinson. I think they went to kindergarten together. Like Diana. No, I'm sorry. He went to kindergarten with Barrett Strong. I think the guy that wrote the song "Money." That's what I like. So he's around the same age as some of those guys, and so they used to come over to my dad's house and get fitted. You know, my mom working. Oh, his mom was working on their clothes. Um, and his cousin lived across the street from Melvin Franklin, who was the bass singer of the Temptations. And every morning when they were kids, like during the summer, he said Melvin used to come over there and eat breakfast with them. So I always thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. So obviously, you know, Black Bottom was gone long before I was born, but I learned about it. I was in 2013. I was a part of Mosaic Youth Theatre of Detroit, a youth development organization through vocal music and theater and technical theater as well. But by my second year in the program, we did a play called Hastings Street. Hastings Street was a story. It was a play within a play type of deal. It was set in the 40s in Black Bottom, and there were a group of teenagers who wanted to write a play for a class that they were in, and they decided to write about their lives. And so through doing that play, I learned a lot about Paradise Valley, Black Bottom, and that whole area, that time period. Doing that show, I had never heard of it. I was like 13 at the time, and we talked to some Detroit historians or some of our relatives who may have been there during that time. I remember my dad; he came in and spoke to us and just about his experiences. And it was a really cool experience. I really enjoyed doing the play. I learned a lot, learned a lot of cool music. And what's funny is now where Mosaic is in the UPSM uh, elementary school building, which was the old Sidney D. Miller campus, which was like a high school over there. It's in the area where Black Bottom was. And
Hmm.
so I remember one year after I graduated, went to college and things like that, I came back and I worked for Mosaic for 2 years. And I remember we took some of the young artists just across the street where there were different, like, it was like a walking museum tour, and it was like different stops about like Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, and we took them through there, and it was a really cool experience to be a part of. But yeah. So my dad's father, I never got a chance to meet him, but my dad used to always talk about him, and he owned and lived in this bar. It's called the Apex Bar. I think the building is still standing. I've seen it a couple times, but my granddad owned that bar, and he worked there, and he lived there, and all of the big acts of the day, whenever they came to Detroit, will come to the Apex Bar, which I haven't seen the inside, but just from the outside, it's not a very big venue like the Fox or anything like that. But like the Duke Ellingtons, the Count Basies, the Louis Armstrongs, like that during that big band jazz era, all those people used to come by my grandfather's bar and come performed or just come after a show. Maybe they did a show at the Fox or something. And they came down to the Apex Bar, maybe did a little after party, things like that. So it was really cool to know that, you know, somebody in my family who I've never met played like a small part. Hearing the perspective of someone who was a kid during that time was always really interesting. My dad was born in 1941. Um, and so through talking to him and also doing the show Hastings Street with Mosaic and learning about what it was like to grow up in an all black neighborhood, during times of, racial segregation and things like that. It was really cool to hear from and to hear about, um, just growing up during that time, seeing black owned businesses, right? I think we're seeing a much bigger surge of it now, but when I was a kid, early 2000s, I can't recall knowing about too many black owned businesses in Detroit, but hearing from my dad, who was a kid during the 40s and 50s, and he didn't live in Hastings Street, but when he would go visit well, didn't live in Black Bottom. Um, but when he would go visit his dad and just be in the area, he talked about how there was black everything, black barbershops, black grocery stores, black uh, doctors offices, black anything, like you name it. And so we always hear about like Black Wall Street and things like that, but it's really cool to know that there was a time where Detroit had that as well. Sure, no, he never really talked about what happened after the fact. Yeah, I don't know. I just know the building's still there, and I know it's closed down, but I don't know when it closed. I don't know what happened. I think that we would definitely feel more of a sense of ownership of the city if Black Bottom was still there. Um, well, I feel like Detroiters have a lot of pride in Detroit. It's not really a true sense of ownership because we don't, at least, and this is just to my knowledge, we don't own a lot of things in Detroit, as a community. Even though we are one of the blackest cities in America, we are not primarily black run, black led. And I feel like if we had, if Black Bottom was still there, right, and it maybe expanded and branched out, we would have a lot more ownership over our city, over like what happens, and even just like day to day life, businesses and restaurants and doctors' offices, and just all that, right? Like we have a lot of black owned small businesses, but it would be very nice to have huge businesses, huge black owned businesses in Detroit, not just a restaurant here or there or a barber shop or a clothing store, but like, large even corporations maybe. Who knows? Detroit could have been a booming capital for black business. Could have been like Atlanta, if Detroit, if Black Bottom had stayed, and it didn't get destroyed. Yeah, like I said, we definitely have a lot of pride in our city, but I wish we had a lot more ownership of our city. My age are like either dying to get out of Detroit or like you have no aspirations of leaving because maybe you don't know what else is out there, you don't want to know what else is out there, or I got to get out the city. And I think a lot of people have that mentality no matter where they're from. I just moved to New York a couple months ago, and so a lot of people are like, even people who are from here want to get out of New York. You think, why would you want to leave New York? But I get it. And I think, but I do think a lot of people leave and come back, where it would be nice if Detroit was a place where you didn't feel like you had to leave in order to help the city. While there are now, I do know some people who never left who are making changes in the city and are trying to do things. I think that's great, but it'd be nice if Detroit was one of the places people wanted to come to. People always want to go to Chicago, want to go to LA, want to go to New York. A lot of Detroit people go to Atlanta. I know a lot of people who have left and gone to Houston and like Dallas, these big major cities. Um, but I feel like if we had had that ownership and it was like a place where people wanted to come, right? One thing I hear is interesting talking to people who maybe are even from other cities in Michigan. Like one of my frat brothers, he's from Ipsy. And so he talks about how, like, Detroit's a cool city and all, but nobody's coming here to vacation. I never heard anybody say, I'm going to Detroit for summer vacation, summer break. Or like when people ask, oh, what is there to do in Detroit? Sometimes I'm kind of like, hmm, I'm not too sure. Like I know, but like if somebody were to ask, I don't know. It's like I can't really tell you. People, you go to Chicago, it's like, oh, go to Navy Pier, oh, go see the Bean, or you go to New York, go to Times Square, go to Soho, things like that. But it would be nice if Detroit was one of those places people wanted to come to. Maybe giving some of those people that you displaced like some ownership of that land. or maybe allowing them the opportunity to open up a business there and like actually supporting them throughout the, not just like, oh, here's 10K, start something, or here's I don't know how much it takes to start a business, but like here's $10,000, but like actually sitting with them and walking with them, because we all know the statistics of like small owned businesses, that you either do great or you like crash and burn, right? And it would be nice if the city of Detroit um, helped those people who got displaced and gave them some sort of reparations in that way. Like you get an ownership of the land, you can, the opportunity will walk with you as you start a new business venture over here, like things like that. I think it would just, it's stuff where I feel like a lot of times it's just like a handout of some sorts, but it's not like an actual, like, we're gonna really try to fix this, right? We know the whole 40 acres and a mule thing. What are you gonna do once you get the 40 acres and a mule? Because you've been displaced for so long, and then generations after you have kind of, I don't know, assimilated to maybe what that displacement feels like. If you actually gave them a chance to bring back what it once was, and not just like, here's some money, but like, and not to say you have to dictate what the money is for, but actually giving and providing resources to use the money. I think it would be nice to learn more about the place, and figure out what happened to it, and maybe get it back up and running. Like that would be good. It seemed like it was one of those like small hole in the wall joints, but that's actually like thriving. You know what I mean? And so it'd be cool to open it back up. I have zero business knowledge, and I've never had any aspirations to owning a business or a restaurant or anything like that. But it would be nice if somebody, I don't know, reached out one day and was like, hey, your granddad lived here, he worked here, like, we want to build this place back up and get it back to where it was. Because I feel like a lot of times the fact that those were the celebrities of the day, and they will come to this little small joint. I feel like it's nice when big names come to Detroit, because I feel like a lot of times with concerts and things like that, you look and see, oh, such and such coming, and they're not there, or they're like, I don't know, in like Royal Oak, or like, someplace else that's not really Detroit, Grand Rapids, Pine Knob, where it's nice that we have Little Caesars Arena now that, the big acts can come here. But it would be nice if they came and like actually got to experience the city. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like Drake was here over the summer. Like, what if Drake actually stayed and had a party in Detroit? I'm sure he had something in Cali, had something in Texas. I got to see him in New York. He was all across the city, for 2 weeks. So it'd be cool if when he came back in July, like if Drake was actually able to experience the city a lot more, and so I think it's just that sense of ownership, where like if Black Detroiters had more like physical, tangible ownership of the city, I feel like we could really do something. The most important thing is that it's a part of our history that has kind of been erased, because not too many people. I feel like it's one of those, if you know, you know, type of things, where like there's so many. I think from learning about Black Bottom, it really opened my eyes to more Detroit history and how Detroit history has helped shape Black history in a sense. And I think while, as a music person, Motown is a great contribution, and that's I always stand on that hill. Like y'all wouldn't have be nothing if we didn't discover them 5 kids from Gary, Indiana. It'd be nothing if Smokey Robinson didn't sit down and write them songs. But I feel like there's so much more to Detroit history that we don't even know about in our own city. And I think projects like these are important because it helps get the word out and like really spread it to the youth, to young people. Like I said, I was 13 when we did Hastings Street. I think they originally commissioned the play back in like 2001, maybe 2002. I think when I did it, it was a Mosaic second time doing the play. And so I think more projects like that, it would be cool. I saw another show recently, a theater company called Plowshares, I think, They had a show called Hastings Street, and it had its own story, like guy trying to buy a jazz joint or something like that. But it took place during the '40s in Detroit in Black Bottom, and so having more things like that that's maybe based on the life of what it was like during that time, where we have stuff like Dream Girls. That's a fictional story, but it has so much to do with what music was like at that time and what black people, how they were. Like, they were in Chicago. It'd be cool if we had something like that that took place in Black Bottom, something that everybody kind of knew about. Right now I'm a music teacher, but I am interested in like my own artistry as well. I've had a lot of really cool experiences through being in organizations like Mosaic and singing at school. I went to Renaissance for high school. Um, and I've had a lot of really cool experiences, and I want to be able to pass that on and create them for the next generation to come after me, whether that be through education or through like my own, artistry and my own work. So yeah, just as an artist who shares and exchanges and continues a legacy and keeps passing it down.